Yo, welcome to How to Write a Novel. The novel's not finished yet. Final chapter, very close, but yeah, since I'm traveling around Japan, I have put writing on hold almost entirely. As I said last episode, I just kind of get some done here and there, and it's like, wow, I'm still getting closer to being done, even while I'm trying to just not do any writing. But I've been doing a lot better at that lately, of not doing any writing. So last episode, I was in Yokohama, and I was in Yokohama, and I was about to start my plan of trying to go down the coast. This is what I wanted to do on this second trip to Japan. Third trip in total, but second on this journey, this flight to Asia. Started with Japan, ending with Japan, then heading home. I wanted to try going down the coast just on normal trains with my normal transit card and see if I could pull it off. And it went pretty well. I spent a week in Yaizu and then a week in Gamagori. And then things did get a little trickier. Once I got to Nagoya, I was just passing through. But then to get down to Ise City, the Ise Peninsula, transit did become a little more complicated because you can't just use the normal card. I had to buy a special ticket for limited express trains all of a sudden. You can't use your IC card, which I found out stands for Integrated Circuit Card. I didn't know what IC meant, but it's just the English term, Integrated Circuit. But it's the little card you use on the subway that you can also use at convenience stores and different restaurants and stores, and it's really, really useful. But for whatever reason, the train got a little complicated at that point, but it was no big deal. I just bought a ticket from the conductor guy mid-journey because I didn't realize I was supposed to have bought a ticket. But that was pretty cool. 3 weeks in random coastal cities, I'd say it went pretty well. And now I'm in Osaka, back in a big city. And yeah, it's a bit of a rough transition going from the nice little cities to a big crazy one. And Osaka is definitely the most effed up city I've been in Japan. It's just, the problem is I'm right in the center in cheap hotel row. And it just feels like any other big city. It's just kind of full of beer cans and cigarette butts and everything just sucks. But luckily, Japan being Japan, I can just get on a train and in 30 minutes, I'm back out in nature. Like right now, I'm just hiking down a mountain. I hiked up a mountain this afternoon and now I'm hiking back down. So yeah, Osaka's not my favorite, but that's okay because it's easy to escape from. So there's the travel update. But I just wanted to yammer a bit because I was just listening to this song, and this episode is just an excuse to play a song. But obviously once this book is done, then it's editing time, and that's going to be interesting because one piece of advice that I think I'm going to use is there's a lady named Ellen Brock who has a YouTube channel about book editing. She's a book editor, and I like listening to her. I still only listen when it's an applicable topic because she does talk a lot about people that are trying to make actually commercially successful books, books that actually excite people. A lot of guidelines that I just feel like don't apply to me because I'm, for better or for worse, trying to do a weird fucking book that doesn't follow the rules and is a lot harder to fucking pinpoint what it's even about. But she did mention for editing, she recommended give it a little rest. Once the book's done, put it in a drawer for a couple of weeks or whatever, but then try to read the whole thing, if not in 1 day, then in 2 days. Just try to sit down and even without doing any heavy editing, just try to read the whole thing in as complete a form, as quickly as you comfortably can, just to be able to get a better sense of what the whole thing looks like. Don't just edit in bits and pieces and get all lost in the sauce and not actually know what you're editing or where you're trying to get to. Just try to read it and take big picture notes and try to get a sense of, what is this thing? What is the form of this thing? And then what needs to happen next? So I'm not at that point yet, but it's certainly going to be weird after all these years. Oh, I should mention, though, that Ellen did mention, you presume that people who work in literary fields probably are working on their own novel as well. Why not? But I don't remember her ever mentioning it, but she did say she is working on a book, but she's been working on it for the past 7 years. And I just love that because I'm always, trying to convince myself that it's okay how long this has taken. It's just the process is going as the process is going. But, I always do kind of feel like I need to apologize a bit or something. I came out the gates because my Last of Us book took a couple of years to write. I was like, I'm sure a novel will be harder, but how much harder could it be? I definitely didn't expect it to take this long. It's taken me even longer than that. But just to hear someone else so casually say it, like, yeah, I've been working on my novel for 7 years, what of it? That's not weird. That's not unusual. And I'm like, how nice to hear. It's certainly a message that I think wouldn't hurt for that message to be out a little more. That, like, what's the hurry? Who cares, man? It's the process that's important. It's just the act of writing a book that is important as far as like a self-development practice. Who the fuck cares what happens at the end? Who cares how long it takes? Who cares what happens with it? All that stuff is secondary, to like the discipline of it. It's like a spiritual pursuit, it's like following a religious doctrine or something. I'm working on my novel. That's the part that's cool and interesting, and where you forge the fucking fires of your insides to get this thing done someday. But yeah, the end result, who fucking gives a shit, frankly? It doesn't really matter. So hearing someone else say that, I liked that. Felt good. So even though I'm not quite at that point yet, I'm not quite done, I'm not quite ready to just read this whole book and see what it really is, but it's on my mind. I am trying to piece it together as well as I can. This thing that is so distended over the years that it's like, man, those old chapters are going to feel weird. That was a long time ago. But obviously, trying to think about that though once in a while of like, yeah, what exactly is the point of this novel? And it is, I feel like, a little more abstract than your average novel. I definitely don't follow a normal plot structure. It's hard to pinpoint an antagonist. It's hard to pinpoint a distinct plot. It's hard to pinpoint anything. Which is fine as long as it didn't happen by accident, If I'm doing this somewhat unusual thing, as long as I know that's what I'm doing, and as long as that is what I intend to do, then great, And again, the outcome is the outcome. Whatever happens, happens. But as long as I do what I wanted to do, then that's fine. And I was thinking how the story really, I feel like it is just meant to be a tone piece. It's meant to be a mirror of a psychological situation. It's this big epic thing in the story of this girl's homeworld explodes. Everyone she knows is dead. There's nowhere to go back to. But obviously, that's a metaphor, It's just a metaphor for the traumas that happen in your life. Like if I had to, this is certainly not what the book's about, but when I think about my own life, it is very sad that my dad died sooner than he should have died. But I don't think that's the worst thing that ever happened in my life. That was unfortunate that he didn't live to be older. I think the worst thing that ever happened in my life is my brother's schizophrenia. Because it's like he died 20, 25 years ago, but there's still this guy walking around that's not him. He's been gone for a long time. But nobody got to mourn. Nobody got to get over it. It's just this impossible situation where he's gone, but there's this thing still there that is a miserable asshole that just everyone can't stand dealing with. But what do you do, It's not his fault. But he's also just wildly unlikable. Whatever's left, this shell that is left is just, would I even be sad if he died? Of course I would be, but I don't know. There is no way out. There is no answer. There's no good outcome. And it's been this way for decades, All you can do is just carry on. So to me, that's my homeworld blew up, There is no answer. There's no getting over it. You just move on. And what does that do to you? What kind of person are you going to be? How many, dreams and fantasies for the future are just eradicated and they're never coming back? 0% belief in the fairy tale ending anymore. So that's really all this book is about, is to try to mirror that happening to somebody. But even that, I don't want to put too much of a point on it. Like, I don't want to focus too much or signpost anything too hard, because I feel like that's too easy to recognize. Everyone is extremely media savvy and media literate now. They can see when you're doing that stuff, It's like, oh, here's where this part was a metaphor. Here's where they're trying to apply a theme. All that stuff, it just stands out like a sore thumb. So I want to keep things deliberately vague for that reason as well. I'd rather people be a little confused and not know what the point of the book was, rather than exactly pinpoint, oh, this was clearly what the point was meant to be and I don't feel it. If I just leave people adrift at sea, that's fine, because I know the people who understand will understand. So I just want to write a book for them. See, this is why I don't like to talk about it. This has been like a perfect day. I got enough sleep last night. I came and did this hike up a mountain. Everything is beautiful, fall weather. I would have felt just fine all day long if I wasn't talking about this right now. So that's why, I don't want to write a book about this. It's why that movie Ginger Snaps is one of my favorite movies. Because if you make a story about a person with schizophrenia, that's not fun. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to read that. I don't want to experience that. If you write a story about your sibling turning into a fucking werewolf, it's like you trick me. I'll watch it a bunch of times before I even realize that, like, why am I getting so much out of this? And then you piece it together. It came at you sideways. It snuck its way past the defenses. It got in there. So that's the story I want to write. It's okay if it doesn't work for most people, because it will work. As long as it works for somebody, that's all that I care about. And maybe it'll work for them in a way that other stories don't. Maybe it'll give them something that they've been looking for or hoping for that they're not getting from someone else. And I guess just knowing that that's the goal, knowing that that's what I'm trying to do, it really makes it okay whatever happens. I mean, I don't know, what could the worst ever possible scenario be? It could just be I literally just put this book out online as a fucking PDF as a companion piece to this podcast, and that's fine. Whatever, dude. It'd be cool if, more than that happens. But that's literally the lowest rung outcome, and it's like, that's fine. Whatever, like, I still had the experience. I still gained the experience of writing this book, and I can carry that forward to other books. That really wouldn't be at all bad. Because, I'm not writing to try to pay the bills. I don't need to worry about that, luckily. I got my dead dad's money in my pocket. I'm all right. I can afford to just make my boutique book with my very specific aim. My artsy fucking nonsense. That's, I can do that. So let's keep this episode short. I don't want to just go on and on about this. I feel like there we go. I got the basic idea across of what has been in my mind lately, of how I'm seeing this book, or what I expect to find when I read the whole thing. Or if I don't find that, how I will try to reshape it, like what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for a tone piece. I'm aiming for something that will hopefully resonate with, like, maybe a weird, buried, complicated feeling that somebody has just had to push down. Because there was nothing else to do with it. Oh wow, I can hear a train in the distance. That's good. I'm not actually sure where the nearest train station is, but it must not be too So yeah, lack of distinct plot is not a big problem. Lack of a distinct antagonist is not a big problem. The only problem will be if the tone isn't there, if the tone isn't getting across, if the psychological portrait of this person doesn't feel real. That's the only real problem. So I like having, obviously, songs. I talk all the time about songs, and like if there was a movie version of this story, here's a song that could go in. The whole thing kind of came from that Nine Inch Nails song, Field on Fire, Burning Bright, because it's just like, that was my initial thought for, here's how this character's gonna feel at the end of the story. And that's not the case anymore. It is just softened more and more and more and more and more as I went. Because it's not about, I think my initial thought was like, if you can't digest your feelings, if you don't know how to move forward, if you don't know how to move on, then you get angry about it. But the more this story has gone on and the more I've thought about it, or the more fleshed out things become, it's like, yeah, no, maybe not. Maybe you get angry a little, but in the longer term, that's not sustainable. There's a lot of bad habits and unhealthy personal choices you can make and still carry on. You can breathe smoke, you can burn diesel, you know. You don't have to be a self-actualized healthy person, and you can live a long, relatively successful life. You know, you can grind up garbage and you can work with that. You can continue on with that. But anger was a little too narrow. Anger is a small part of it. Because who's there to be angry at? What's there to be angry about? You know, it's just the hand of God came down and crushed something or someone that you know in your life. And I mean, all you can do is be thankful that it didn't crush you, I guess, right? But you can't feel good about that. So I really like songs that help me hang on to the tone. That's going to be important when I'm editing, you know? The tone. What is the tone I'm trying to get? Yeah, that train is very close. I can't see it through the woods, but it's very close. Good old Japan. Good old Japan. Beautiful mountain with a beautiful view and a train right near it. But yeah, I need to make sure that the characters and the circumstances of the plot arise out of the emotional reality of the situation that the main character's in. And then beyond that, any perceived lack of point or lack of clarity or lack of distinct A to B to C plot is okay. I don't mind. I really don't mind if that stuff isn't clear, because that's just not the point. And if I'm overreaching and if I'm trying for way too complicated of a triple backflip dismount and it totally doesn't work and I fall on my face, that's fine. I'll just write the next book, you know? So music is, I mean, what's better for tone than music, you know? All music is tone. So now all this highfalutin talk, let's go right down to lowbrow of like, you know, the music I like tends to not be fucking Vivaldi or something, you know? It's just fucking pop music, pop rock from the 90s basically, or the 2000s or whatever. It's not a coincidence Nine Inch Nails is, you know, one of the guiding songs for this story. So in this case, Linkin Park. Linkin Park's a good example, actually, of transposing your bad feelings onto a different situation, where Chester Bennington, the singer of Linkin Park, he committed suicide about 7 years ago. And it really, man, it hit me hard. I did not like that feeling, because I don't know him, you know? I'm just a Linkin Park fan. It's obviously sad that he's dead, but just, because you transpose that onto your own life and onto your own situation and bad things that have happened in your own life that, again, maybe you just haven't really thought about that hard, or maybe you've tried not to think about too hard. So it's easier for your mind to go to those places when you're not thinking about your own circumstances and your own friends and your own family. You're just thinking about a celebrity, a guy from a band. And you can really think about just how sad that is. And then you're like, whoops, darn it, now I'm thinking about people that I do know in my own life. I didn't mean to. I don't know how helpful it is to be rolling this stuff endlessly over in my mind when there's no answer. But it's natural to spend some time thinking about old Chester. And then you inadvertently start thinking about your own life. Anyway, it seems Linkin Park was over, understandably. And Mike Shinoda, the other guy in Linkin Park, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of people in Linkin Park, but he was kind of the headmaster of that band. You know, he was the guy who really started it. He did a solo album called Post Traumatic that was really good, about how fucked up things were after Chester died. But recently, all these years later, they've reformed Linkin Park with a new singer, and it's really exciting. It's really cool. Because she's fucking excellent, for one thing. She's like an incredible vocalist, but she's different than Chester. And, you know, at first people are rebelling of like, oh my God, how could you do this? You know, Chester's memory, blah, blah, blah. Trying to dig up every little piece of dirt they can about this woman who nobody knew who she was before this. She was just in a very small band that most people didn't know. So I don't know, I just kind of plugged my ears and was like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just these entitled internet people that just, why do you have to ruin everything that's nice? You know? The rest of the people in Linkin Park are happy to be back doing music. Why apply all these things to it, like that it's some cynical cash grab, or oh, I can even hear the ding of the train. Yeah, I'll have an easy time getting home today. Nice. But yeah, it got to the point of like, you know, this new singer, her name's Emily Armstrong. Her parents are Scientologists, and she grew up in Scientology, which is a weird, unfortunate situation. It's very unfortunate for her that she grew up in that kind of thing. How deep into it is she? I have no idea. But the hoops that these quote-unquote fans will jump through to just want to destroy anything of just like, okay, so yeah, here's all this terrible stuff about Scientology, and I agree, I'm not a fan of Scientology, I don't like any religions. But they're like, you know, if Scientology does X, Y, or Z, and she's related to Scientology, so now the rest of Linkin Park is, and now here's how that directly spits in the face of Chester Bennington's legacy. And it's like, why don't you just get off the internet for a while and shut the fuck up, for God's sake. And then you give it a couple of weeks and it's all just blows over and no one talks about it anymore because it was just nonsense to begin with. You can listen to fucking Linkin Park songs without supporting the Church of Scientology. Like, it's connecting so many dots just so you can be outraged on the internet. Why don't you fuck right off? Like, come on. It's just, when I talk about how media savvy and media literate people are these days, that is one way that, man, it is slow coming. I feel like people are extremely not internet savvy. Future generations are going to look back at us and be like, these people were driving without a seatbelt. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They were just little dopamine addicts just going online and being outraged by everything and shooting their mouths off and not understanding what they're fucking doing to themselves and to everyone else. I don't think the future is going to look back very fondly on this first wave of internet-enabled society. It is pretty fucking lame. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the new Linkin Park stuff. It's really fucking good. And it's kind of, what was neat about Linkin Park is they really did stretch out and expand and did all kinds of weird different stuff that was frankly not very popular with most people, but their album 1,000 Suns was my favorite Linkin Park album, and it was fucking weird. It was a concept album about the nuclear bomb, and it's so fucking good. So fucking good. But quote-unquote Linkin Park fans did not like it. because it doesn't sound like the old stuff, man. But that's what was neat about this new version of Linkin Park, is that it gave them kind of an excuse to go back and do the old stuff, you know? Like what they would not have normally done. They would not necessarily go back to basics in this way, in their original guise. But now they kind of have like a, you know, it's been 7 years, it's a new band. They can kind of, you know, do a little remix of the past, and it's much more understood that, like, yeah, what else would you do? But I am more interested to see like 2 or 3 albums from now when they start getting weird again, you know, what's gonna happen? That's what I'm really looking forward to. But speaking of that, my favorite song on the new Linkin Park album is called Overflow. It's definitely the weirdest song on the album, and it's just really, really fucking good. And this is a song, can you believe this was a short episode? This is a totally normal length episode because I just yammer so much. But this is a song that I can so easily envision. Again, if there was the movie version of this story, if I directed the movie of this, again, because I'm so interested in tone, I always think of the first Trainspotting movie as a good example of like that movie is 50% music video. It's just songs and montages that set the tone. And it's fucking so cool. It's such a good movie. I would do that too. Lots of songs, lots of music, lots of montages, you know? Let's get across that tone. And I could see this song for sure. This would be toward the end of the story when Sarat has hooked up with the Accomulon. She's 1-to-1 with the station. And she's just going over schematics of the station. And she's just planting explosives all over the place, not in like a spiteful way, just in a, again, like what I was saying before, of just kind of, I just don't know how to feel. I don't know how to process what's happened to me. I just know I'm very not impressed with these people who live on this space station, who, while they did not cause my homeworld to explode, and while they had no way to stop it from exploding, they didn't really try that hard to warn anybody. And they basically just sat here and watched the planet explode so they could study it. So I'm not gonna hurt them, but I am gonna destroy this fucking station. You know? It's like that's where she's at, is that weird middle ground of, I don't like these people, I don't respect these people. I could probably drum up reasons to justify legitimately hurting them, but ultimately, and now I can see the train. There goes the train in real life. So I'll just keep walking this way and wait till I get to a station. But yeah, ultimately, not only can she not legitimately convince herself that she should really hurt these people, but she also just doesn't care. She's just numb. She just has bigger issues and bigger problems than these fucking people on their space station. But she is gonna blow it up, and she's gonna make them watch. So this would be the point when she's just planting explosives all throughout the station, and then just walking through the station and just, you know, I'm envisioning a slow-mo walk where she walks by just some random citizens, some Nadarian citizens who live on the station, just giving them the side eye as she walks by, and they're looking at her. They don't trust her, they don't really understand her. She definitely doesn't understand them. But she also just doesn't care about them at this point. Like, her exit strategy is all set up and ready to go. It's just this end point where it seems inevitable. What's about to happen seems inevitable. She's gonna plant explosives all over the station. She's gonna arrange escape pods for everybody, including her fellow people, the few of them that are on the station. Everyone's gonna evacuate, and they're all gonna watch this station blow up. But it hasn't happened yet. She hasn't officially pulled the trigger. She's still just setting this in motion. And there just seems to be no other way that this is gonna go. It seems way too late now. Whatever efforts anybody made to try to build bridges or to try to understand what was happening with her was way too little. And then as she learned more and more about why they were even here, it's just pretty unconscionable. So time for an explosion. And this song is just that perfect tone. Just that tone of, it's spacey, it's sad, and then it kind of just builds to more and more intensity of just like this pressure is just growing. And it doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to do. She's really not emotionally equipped at this point to even view the circumstances she's in through that lens. She just doesn't have that ability. It just doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do. It doesn't matter if it's a sensible thing to do. It only matters at this point how she feels about stuff is as far as she can see. That's as far as her sphere of awareness goes, is how do I feel right now and how do I not feel like this anymore? So yeah, this song really helps me key in to that mindset. Overflow by Linkin Park. For the record, by the way, it was Mount Myojin I was on, Myojin, in Oji, Japan. A very short train ride from Osaka, a very easy hike, and a very beautiful view from the top. So here's Overflow by Linkin Park. Thank you for listening. Adios.
Just up for a riot, catching fire, fighting fire. I can feel the pressure coming, and the world will push the button. It's all the same to me. It's all the same to me. Turning from a from the sunlight to a shadow. I know I can't make it stop. I know I'm out of control. I keep on filling it up to overflow. Looking up, the sky is